So it's always good to be thinking rather than just going on autopilot. Autopilot tends to give us that, what was our term? Portraits that look like a sack full of walnuts that we discussed the very first week of class, when you just mindlessly render individual parts at the expense of the whole, rather than design and edit. So I always tell my students, what's the very first thing that we do? And usually they'll kind of get a blank deer in the headlights, kind of a look on their face, but then they'll remember, other than just sitting down and drawing a big egg shape or something. Now it occurs to me, Nathan's always talking about squinting at the subject, so someone will, the light will dawn, they'll say, well, you should squint before you start drawing. And I say, yes, you definitely should do that, but what should we do even before that? These kinds of really annoying questions that bad teachers ask, the leading questions, the kind of questions where I don't care what you think, I want you to repeat back to me what I think. But in this case, that really is bad teaching, that kind of approach where you're just asking students rhetorical questions really meant to parrot back. But it's okay in a case like that, I think, because what you're actually doing is reminding them, you're teaching them a thinking process that can work for them, and so now it's become a quiz. And so what I always say is, you make decisions first. You look at your subject, you make careful decisions about what's interesting to you about the subject. You get some ideas, and then you squint to help you in that process. Squint your eyes way down so the details just blur away, so you see the big, simple value statement of your subject. To keep your eye on the ball and not lose track of that. To keep a clarity as opposed to what ultimately gets us to that bumpy sack of walnuts that we fight so hard to avoid. So that's the reminder that I often start a drawing with, or a demonstration with, or a class with. I'll remind them of that process. But there is even one step further, and I don't know if I've mentioned it yet in class, because it's kind of serious. It's kind of me joking around, but kind of me being very serious at the same time. Even before we start making any of those decisions, there's one other thing that we have to do first. We have to say this to ourselves. Right now, I have the opportunity to draw. I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep last night. I'm hungry. There are distractions. I have things on my mind from the other stuff going on at home, the other stuff going on at work. There are a lot of reasons why I might not do as good a drawing as I could, but I cannot allow that to happen. And so, regardless of all those distractions, I am committing right now to doing the most amazing drawing of my career. This is the drawing. This is it. This is the moment I've been waiting for all of my life. You really do. Why bother if you're not going to do the best you can do in that moment? Why bother? Because it's so tempting in a life drawing class to say to yourself, well, I'm just so exhausted and distracted. This week, I'll just kind of go through the motions. I'll listen to the lecture. Yes. I'll take a few notes. Yes. I'll make sure that I get what I would miss out on. Sure, I'll make sure I get that, but I'm so tired and distracted. I'll kind of go through the motions this week, and I'll come back fresh and do a better job next week. There is no next week. This is it. And this is it, period. The only things we can be certain of doing are the things that we do right now. And so that's what I strongly recommend every time that you sit down to do a drawing. And here's another thing, and apologies, because here we are quite a ways into the class. Here we are at week 8, and so over the last many weeks I've been putting these lessons together. So I don't recall if I mentioned this specifically before or not. But here's a tip for you. Here's something that's been really helpful for me in getting focused. So I do lots of demonstrations, and sometimes I have a whole crowd of people looking over my shoulder expecting me to come up with something interesting. That's a lot of pressure. And this is the thing that I think I've opined about already in the class, is that I don't talk and draw at the same time very well. Those are two different things in my head, and one distracts from the other. And yet in a demonstration I'm required to do that. And also a demonstration, it can't go on for 20 hours. People lose interest. It has to really cut to the chase. And so you have to sit down, you have to focus, you have to make the drawing fall into place and explain clearly what you did to make it fall into place. And then you have to step away from the drawing, and you desperately hope that everyone, claps and cheers and says, wow, we can't believe you did that. How did you do that? They lift you up, they put you on their shoulders, and they carry you out, and cheer, and they have a big parade, and the mayor comes out, pins an award on your lapel, and then confetti's falling. You desperately hope you come up with something like that. Well, that's of course usually not the case. What you really hope is that you at least do something that's competent, something where people look and say, oh yeah, I see what he was trying to teach us there. I see how that came together. That's the truth of how much you can get out of a quick demo. But the thing about a demo is, it forces you to focus. It doesn't matter if you're having a bad day. All of a sudden, all these people have this expectation, there's so much pressure on you that you do focus. Where if maybe you're on your own and you're not feeling that well, and no one knows or cares what you're going to do, it's easy to slip away from it. So what I do when I'm doing a drawing and I'm feeling a little bit distracted, I'm not feeling like I'm in the zone, I pretend like I'm doing a demo. I really do. I just kind of put myself in that space there. Okay, if I have all these professional people looking over my shoulder, for instance, I've done some demonstrations over at, I teach some classes at Walt Disney. And these are some heavy hitters, folks. Over there, oh my gosh, the pressure is on. It's quite the class, because the people that you're quote-unquote teaching are serious, heavy hitters, and they know when you're faking it, and they know when you're not on. And so you have got to be on. You've got to prepare, you've got to come in, and you've got to hit it hard and hit it right. And I've got to make this thing beautifully come together. That's something that's really helped me. Maybe it'll help you a little bit as well.